Hey everyone, my name is Antonetti. I'm one of the owners here at the Rust and Gold in Huntington, New York. I think the hospitality industry overall was one of the most directly affected by the pandemic. We were not deemed essential from the very start. As a result, we were all forced to close when New York State included us in the initial shutdown, which happened in mid-March. So overall, it's been incredibly challenging for every different phase of restaurant, whether you're a giant catering hall or a small little mom and pop shop with 2 seats. Everyone has felt this pretty impactful. So we normally operate 7 days a week for dinner during the week and lunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Like most restaurants on Long Island or New York State, come March 15th, we found out that the very next day we had to close our doors. It affected us all deeply. We were out of operation for almost 2 full months before we were allowed to finally start considering a reopen. It was an absolute earth-shattering event for everyone here. Myself and my business partners all, without exaggeration, built this place from the ground up with our own hands. We spent over 1.5 years doing it, and we had spent the previous 4 years after that operating with so much love and so much happiness to be a part of this community and to be doing what we love, that to one day all of a sudden have that life taken away with you without any sort of choice in the matter was extremely, extremely upsetting and challenging. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was the responsibility of keeping our staff as financially secure as they could be, while ensuring that the restaurant itself had a future. Balancing both of those things in the beginning when there was so much uncertainty was like something I've never experienced before. When we first heard about this, our initial concern was how are we going to cover the cost that it takes to operate our business, such as rent and expenses and vendors, while still making sure that we could pay our people, some of which, especially in the hospitality industry, we're not talking about salaried people that have benefits and work contracts. These are people that live, week to week. They're happy in their work and they're comfortable and they love being here, but they can't survive that long without some sort of steady income. So immediately we worried about who we're going to lose, specifically, like our kitchen staff. A lot of kitchen staff, which is something that wasn't really talked about in this industry, are people that aren't from, aren't like their country of origin is in America. While they may be here legally, their legal status is certainly not the same as far as employment as it goes for naturalized Americans. So they have a different set of rules, and it's much more challenging for them, and it's much more challenging for us to keep them paid as well. These are people that aren't as readily, they don't have the same accessibility to some of the programs that we had as a business, or even some of us had as individuals. So measuring all of that and kind of keeping that all while still trying to somehow find a way to open up again was very, very challenging. It took a lot of thinking, a lot of talks, and a lot of waiting, which was the hardest part. Almost while there was a lot of relief plans that were announced initially, timelines on them were extremely hazy in the beginning, and then as we all saw, once they actually started rolling out, there was an entirely separate set of complications that arose for them. There were rules that people didn't know they could kind of circumvent, and the ones that did know did, and it took a lot of money out of the hands of small businesses and young entrepreneurs that really, really needed it at the time. We ended up on the lucky side. We eventually closed for a while. We came to an agreement with our landlord who was extremely reasonable with us. So we, balancing that with the intention to just keep everybody safe, our guests and our staff, we eventually closed. So we closed on March 16th and we remained closed for almost a full 2 months after that. Finally, we made the decision to start opening back up, and once we felt it was safe and realistic, we opened back up and we started offering takeout and delivery, which went well. One thing that I can say is we're very, very blessed to be in the community of Huntington. It's one of the most supportive and welcoming communities that I've ever experienced, and I've lived in a lot of places on Long Island in the country. And when the doors opened back up, the town reminded us of that, and they came out in full force. It led to a different set of challenges, but it was very, very exciting and very awesome. So since then, we've been very lucky to enjoy seeing all the people that we get to see and continuing to serve in this new, unique way. I spoke to all the challenges of kind of the business side of things. I think for the emotional aspect of myself and my partners here, and even our staff, the way that we serve has changed drastically, and it's challenging in ways that we never even thought. We're going from an environment where we prided ourselves so much on our customer service, our connection to our guests, the interactions that we have with them every single time that they're in here, to now being a very kind of cold environment, and it's just literally an exchange of goods now. We still get to see them and we still get to kind of interact with them a little bit, but overall, I hate to sound dramatic, but it's a much more soulless kind of level of service, coming from a place where we're so used to being so full of heart in everything that we do. That being said, it's an absolute necessity. It's the way that we stayed alive, and so we adapted and we've, struggled through it. And we tried our best to stay creative with it. So when we saw that, one of the biggest opportunities that our industry saw was obviously the change of liquor laws. So now all of a sudden we're living in a world where for the first time since pre-prohibition, we're allowed to deliver alcohol and beer. Beer was kind of always allowed, but no one really did it. There's a very specific set of rules that the SLA has in New York State for it, but now everyone's kind of doing it. So we started getting a little creative with the way that we started serving our drinks and offering our food to go. Batch cocktails was something that we had already been doing here, but it was something that we decided to shift into more of a focus. We kind of simplified our cocktail list, which typically was comprised of like pretty elevated design drinks, to more of the simple stuff that people just needed right there on the spot. My business partner found an amazing place in Williamsburg that was a glass wholesaler that sold these really, really awesome 200 ml little glass flasks. We decided to go with that for ours. We thought that, we took a look at one of the other packaging, the products that were being offered on the island. We found kind of a unique way of serving for the time being, and we started doing that. So every week we drove to Brooklyn and we picked up a bunch of cases of these flasks. We came back here, we designed the label for them, we built the cocktails, batched them all up, slapped a sticker on them, and here you go. Another thing that we started exploring was the idea of how can we really mobilize the bar experience. We had access to a beer truck. So this was a fairly new van that had a refrigerated back that held kegs, and it had tap lines shot out the side. So we started doing deliveries with it. We would go on deliveries with it. We were able to pour fresh growlers right out of the back. We had batch cocktails in the back that were ready for the deliveries as well anytime we took food out. And we found an enormous response to them. We had it for a total of 2 days before someone else decided it would be an even better idea if they took that beer truck without asking us for permission. So after the second day of an amazing response to the beer truck, it was stolen. Very, very luckily, and once again going back to what an amazing community we find ourselves in, the very next day we posted up that it had been stolen. Within an hour and a half, a member of the community had contacted us. They had found the van abandoned in the parking lot. We went down there, we recovered it. Ultimately, the van was totaled. However, we decided that this was something that we obviously have a new demand for, and in this new world, this is something that people want. So we went out and we actually purchased a vintage truck. So we bought an old 1963 GMC delivery truck that's currently in the shop, getting made into the new beer truck, which will be on the road momentarily. Hopefully in about a week and a half, yeah. So something else that we've now developed is we've taken that one step further. We decided that we're actually going to pursue canned cocktails. So we went, my partner Lou had this idea. We spent a day kind of scouring around and searching out different methods and different ways of achieving this, whether we were going to send the drinks out in a batch or get them canned somewhere off-site. And then we thought, you know what, we always do it best when we do it in-house. So we went out and we actually bought a canning machine. Found a company that provides cans and can tops that have safe drinking lids that you can adhere to them. So that's the next step. We're currently developing right now, but we're canning up cocktails. So when you're ready to go to the beach, throw some in a cooler. They're safe, they're shelf stable, they're Department of Health approved, and it's going to be awesome. So look for that in probably about another week or two. It feels selfish for me to sit here and say that we were able to come through this and survive and actually discover a few new opportunities that didn't exist pre-pandemic, while there's so many amazing restaurants and chefs and bartenders that are losing their restaurants day by day. Every day there's still more closing. Another one just closed today that I heard of. So it's tough to stay super positive about it because overall our industry will never recover from this. 100%. Hospitality and restaurants are going to look very, very different after this pandemic. We still don't know exactly what that means, but it's certainly going to mean that people are going to have a new approach to how they go out. People are going to have to think about the people around them a little bit more when they're out. Hopefully it means people will have to be a little bit more self-aware, both, staff and guests as well. And just be a little bit more considerate. I'm hoping that what this does right now with the pandemic and everything else that surrounded it, and this incredibly interesting year that we're having, is that people remember that hospitality is an industry that's rooted in love. It's the reason that we should get into this. It's the reason that the people that are successful is because they lead with love in this industry. And I'm hoping that all of the kind of competition and infighting and different ways that people interact with other businesses within the industry of hospitality, I'm hoping that they now peel back, get a little bit more back to that feeling, to remember why we did this in the first place and carry that forward. I think the one thing that the quarantine even amplified was our social media presence. You know, if you get your entire customer base and suddenly make them sit on their couch for 2 months and stare at their phone, obviously social media becomes even more important than it already was. While it was our main tool of advertising and communicating with our guests, now it's absolutely, I think, the only tool that we have. So it's going to become even more imperative in the next coming months as we start to come out of this, as we start to recover, for not only reminding people that we exist, but also keeping them abreast of the rules. You know, you'd be surprised with everything that, you know, comes out every single day in the news as far as updates and guidelines. I have most of our guests coming here not knowing exactly what the rules are. Social media is a great way of communicating how to stay safe in an environment, whether it's a restaurant or just the general public, while still pushing your message across and pushing your